Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. It started off as something harmless, just a game. One of those modern couple trends meant to spice things up and bring you closer. A friendly idea, a casual conversation between two married couples over dinner. Laughter was flowing, wine glasses clinking, and everything felt lighthearted. No one thought twice when the topic of couple swapping came up. It was suggested almost jokingly, almost. They all promised it would be just one night. No feelings. No regrets. Just a swap game, they said. But that night changed everything. Meet Neha and Rishi, married for 7 years, best friends before that. Their bond was real, deep, filled with shared dreams and small moments that made life feel warm. But like many couples, routine slowly started settling in. Between work, errands, and family visits, the spark that once set their souls on fire had dimmed. When their close friends, Samir and Priya, brought up the swap game idea, it didn't come from a place of boredom. It came from curiosity, and maybe a little emotional distance that both couples didn't want to admit existed. It was supposed to be fun. Controlled. Forgettable. But some things, once touched, can't be undone. Rishi agreed hesitantly, trusting Neha, and more than that, trusting the idea that nothing could shake their foundation. Neha, though nervous, went along, telling herself it was only one night. But love isn't a rulebook, and emotions don't follow scripts. What started off as a joke soon blurred lines that no one expected. In the quiet that followed, something shifted. Rishi began noticing how Priya laughed at his jokes, how she looked at him a little longer than before. And Neha? She found herself thinking of Samir in moments she shouldn't have been thinking of anyone else. The morning after was silent. The kind of silence that screams louder than words. Smiles felt forced. Conversations were clipped. Something unspoken had entered their lives, an invisible crack that kept growing, even as they tried to cover it up with routine and denial. That night opened a door neither couple knew existed, and once it opened, it refused to close. Weeks passed. Neha caught herself comparing Rishi to Samir, and it wasn't fair. Not to him, not to her marriage. Rishi began pulling away, saying less, staying out longer. Their once solid bond began to fade like fog in sunlight. But no one dared speak the truth. No one wanted to admit they were falling into something they couldn't control. And then came the message. Late one night, while Rishi was in the shower, Neha's phone lit up. A name appeared on the screen. A message that read simply, "We need to talk. I can't stop thinking about you." Should Neha open it? Should she tell Rishi? Or was it already too late? Let me know if you'd like to continue the story from here. Neha stared at the message on her phone, her hands trembling slightly. The bathroom door was still closed, steam softly hissing under the frame. Her heart raced, a mixture of guilt, fear, and something else she didn't want to name. She didn't delete the message. She didn't reply either. She just kept looking at those words over and over again. "We need to talk. I can't stop thinking about you." It wasn't just a message. It was a confession. A spark that could either reignite something dangerous or burn everything to the ground. Things hadn't been the same since that night. Rishi had become more distant, gentle, but guarded. They still lived together, shared meals, laughed at random YouTube videos, but underneath, something was broken. And she knew he felt it too. Every time they touched, it was like brushing against glass. Careful. Fragile. Pretending nothing had changed. But everything had. Samir and Priya stopped coming around as much. When they did, it was always with forced energy, like they were all in some strange play where no one could forget their lines. Neha noticed how Priya avoided eye contact with her, how her laugh didn't quite reach her eyes anymore. And Rishi? He was quieter when Priya was around. Too quiet. Neha hadn't planned on feeling anything for Samir. It just happened. The night of the swap was supposed to be a line they'd all walk past and return from. But somewhere during the hours, that line got erased. Samir had looked at her like he saw her, really saw her, something she hadn't felt in a long time. And now, even weeks later, she could still feel the weight of his gaze. But love isn't just about passion. It's about promises. And Neha had made hers, years ago, to Rishi. The man who once brought her coffee in bed, who still reached for her hand in crowded rooms. Was she really ready to risk that for a feeling she didn't even understand? Rishi came out of the shower, towel wrapped around his waist, hair dripping. He smiled at her, the way he always had. Soft. Familiar. But she saw it now, how tired his eyes looked, how something behind that smile felt like it was holding on by a thread. And then he said it. Quietly, but clearly. Did Samir message you too? Neha froze. Her fingers tightened around the phone, and for a second, she couldn't speak. Rishi stood there, droplets of water trailing down his arms, eyes searching hers. There was no anger in his voice, no accusation. Just a calm that made her feel even more unsettled. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. Yes, she whispered, barely audible. Rishi sat beside her, not touching, just close enough that she could feel the warmth from his skin. Silence stretched between them, heavy and loaded. The ticking of the wall clock sounded louder than ever. He messaged me too, Rishi finally said. Last week. Neha turned to look at him, shocked. What did he say? Rishi didn't answer right away. He looked away, staring at the floor. That he regrets what happened. But, he also said he felt something real. Something he couldn't ignore. Neha felt her throat tighten. Samir had said something similar to her before, casually, during that night, when they thought no one was listening. Now it echoed back like a warning. What had they all stepped into? Rishi rubbed his hands together, nervous. I didn't respond. I didn't know what to say. I thought maybe it was just a phase. But then Priya messaged me yesterday. Now Neha's breath caught. Priya? He nodded. She said she wants to talk to you. That she's been feeling strange ever since that night. That you changed. Neha looked away, her eyes stinging. It wasn't about physical cheating anymore. It had become emotional, something deeper and more dangerous. They'd all opened doors in their hearts that were supposed to stay locked. Now no one knew how to close them. Later that day, Neha met Priya at their usual cafe, the one with the glass windows and faded cushions. It used to be their favorite spot for heart-to-hearts. Now it felt unfamiliar. Priya looked tired, her hair pulled back loosely, dark circles under her eyes. She smiled, but it didn't reach her soul. I just needed to say this out loud, Priya began, stirring her coffee slowly. I think I made a mistake. We all did. But I didn't expect it to follow me like this. Neha looked at her, unsure of what she meant. What do you mean, follow you? Priya hesitated, eyes welling. Samir's not the same. He keeps bringing you up. In little ways. Your name slips into conversations. He's distracted, distant. I feel like I'm losing him, to you. Neha's chest tightened. She hadn't wanted any of this. It was supposed to be a game, a fantasy. But now, lives were tangled, feelings stirred, and relationships strained under the weight of things unsaid. And deep inside, Neha didn't know what scared her more, that she might lose Rishi, or that she might want to. Neha walked back home with her mind spinning, each step feeling heavier than the last. Priya's words clung to her like cold air. I feel like I'm losing him to you. She hadn't asked for this. None of them had. But somehow, their one reckless night had pulled all four of them into a mess no one could control anymore. She had thought feelings could be switched off like a light, but they weren't. They stayed. They lingered. And now, they were starting to shape choices that couldn't be undone. Rishi was waiting when she got home. He didn't ask about the meeting, and Neha didn't bring it up. But something about the way he looked at her, longer, more uncertain, said he knew. Or at least, he was starting to guess. That night, Neha couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the way Samir had looked at her the night of the swap, the gentleness, the hunger, the confusion. And now, knowing that he was still thinking about her, that he had reached out even when he shouldn't have, created a weight inside her chest she didn't know how to carry. It wasn't just guilt, it was something else. A feeling she didn't want to name. Something dangerously close to longing. But then there was Rishi. The man who had loved her before anyone else. Who had stayed. Who, even now, was trying to make sense of the chaos without exploding. She could feel him trying to hold it together. Trying to keep their marriage from slipping into silence. And yet, when she turned in bed, Rishi was already awake. We need to talk, he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. But not now. Not here. Her heart pounded. Then when? Tomorrow night. Samir and Priya are coming over. All of us, we need to end this together. Neha's stomach twisted. The idea of facing them all in one room again, after everything that had been said, felt unbearable. But maybe this was the only way. The only way to stop what had started before it destroyed everything. The next evening arrived too fast. The table was set, the lights dimmed low. A quiet tension floated in the air, thicker than anything she'd ever felt. The doorbell rang. Neha and Rishi exchanged a glance. And when she opened the door, Samir's eyes locked onto hers. And that look said everything. Let me know when you're ready for the climax. Samir stepped inside, followed closely by Priya, her eyes scanning the room like she was walking into a battlefield. Rishi nodded politely, trying to keep the evening civil, but his jaw was tight. Neha's hands trembled slightly as she reached for the water jug, her mind caught in a whirlwind. The table looked perfect, like a scene from a calm dinner party, but beneath the surface, everything was cracking. They sat, all four of them, around a table that now felt more like a stage. Small talk tried to fill the air, but it fell flat. The silence between the sentences spoke louder than words. Glasses clinked, cutlery scraped plates, but no one really tasted anything. Halfway through dinner, Rishi finally spoke, his voice firm but not angry. Let's not pretend we're okay. We're not. This thing we did, it didn't end that night. Everyone went still. Priya glanced at Samir, who was already looking at Neha. Samir cleared his throat. I never meant to ruin anything. But what happened, it wasn't just a game for me. I've tried to move on. I've tried to forget. But the truth is, I can't. Neha looked down at her plate, heart pounding. Priya's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in heartbreak. You said we'd be honest, Priya said softly, looking at him. But you were still texting her behind my back. Samir didn't deny it. He just looked at Neha, his expression quietly desperate. That's when Rishi dropped the second twist. He reached into the drawer near the table and pulled out an envelope. Before you start blaming each other, there's something you all need to see. He handed it to Neha. She opened it slowly, unfolding a stack of printed screenshots. Text messages. Photos. Video call logs. All from Priya, but not to Samir. To Rishi. Neha's eyes widened. You. Rishi looked down. It started after that night. She kept messaging. I didn't reply at first, but eventually I did. I was confused, angry, lost. I thought maybe she understood what I was going through. We talked. That's all. Priya was frozen. Samir looked stunned. Neha's heart dropped. All this time, she had carried the guilt, thinking she was the one who crossed emotional lines. But Rishi had his own secret. One he hadn't shared. One that changed everything. The room fell into a silence so thick it felt like time had paused. The relationships weren't just tangled, they were twisted in every direction. And no one knew who they could trust anymore. Let me know when you're ready to continue toward the final turning point. Neha's breath caught in her throat as the weight of the envelope settled between them all. The room felt smaller now, like the walls were closing in. Rishi had always been the one she believed would never stray, not even emotionally. Yet here they were, secrets exposed like open wounds on the table. Priya's eyes shimmered, but she didn't cry. She stood up, slow and quiet, and walked to the window. I thought I was doing it to protect my marriage, she said softly, voice trembling. But maybe I just didn't want to admit I'd already lost Samir. Samir opened his mouth to speak, but Priya raised her hand. You said you couldn't stop thinking about Neha. You made your choice. Neha turned to Rishi. Why didn't you tell me? He looked at her, the pain in his eyes finally surfacing. Because I didn't want to lose you. I thought if I kept it hidden, we could still fix things. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence was full of years of love, betrayal, confusion, and things they all wished they could take back. It wasn't just about one night anymore. It was about all the little cracks that had been growing long before the game even started. Neha stood, feeling the tremble in her legs. This can't go on. We can't keep living like this, half in love with the past, half pretending in the present. Samir looked at her, hopeful. Then come with me. Neha's eyes widened. What? We made a mistake, yes. But what I feel for you now, it's real. Before she could respond, Rishi interrupted, his voice calm but strong. No. She's not going anywhere tonight. Because what you feel, Samir, is only real when it's easy. Love isn't just about the spark, it's about what you do when everything's on fire. Tears welled in Neha's eyes. She turned to Rishi, the man she almost forgot in the noise of her emotions. I didn't know if we could come back from this, she said quietly. But I want to try. If you do. Rishi took her hand. And just as the room began to breathe again, the doorbell rang. Rishi frowned. Who's that? Neha opened the door slowly, and standing there, holding a single envelope and a nervous smile, was a woman none of them recognized. I think you all need to know the truth, she said. Because Samir wasn't honest with any of you. Let me know when you want the final closing scene. The stranger stepped into the room, her eyes scanning the faces one by one. She was calm but firm, holding the envelope like it carried the weight of the truth none of them expected. Neha's heart pounded as she closed the door behind her. My name is Anya, the woman said, voice steady. I'm Samir's ex-fiancée. Gasps escaped the room. Samir went pale. I know we were over years ago, Anya continued, her eyes on Samir, but what I didn't know is that he reached out to me 3 weeks ago. We met. He told me he was ending his marriage. That he was confused but wanted to start over, with me. Priya looked like the air had been knocked out of her. Samir stepped forward. That's not what I meant. It was just one conversation. I was confused. No, you were making sure you had options, Rishi cut in, voice cold. You didn't just play with Neha's emotions. You played all of us. The envelope in Anya's hand held printed messages, his promises to her, his confessions, the same sweet words he'd used on Neha. It was clear now, Samir had never been fully in. He was chasing the thrill, the mystery, the feeling of being wanted. But when it came time to choose, he always looked for the next escape. Priya stood, holding her head high. We're done, Samir. And this time, I won't be looking back. Neha turned to Rishi, her voice soft but certain. I needed to see all this, to know that what we have is worth more than one night or one mistake. I want us to rebuild, piece by piece. Rishi nodded, emotion flickering in his eyes. Then we start fresh. No more hiding. No more games. The room slowly emptied. Samir left without another word. Anya, after handing over the envelope, quietly walked out into the night. Priya stayed a moment longer, exchanging one last glance with Neha, this time, not angry, but understanding. Later that night, Neha and Rishi sat on the balcony, wrapped in a shared silence that finally felt peaceful. The city lights blinked below them, and the breeze was cool against their skin. This could have ended us, Neha whispered. Rishi looked at her and smiled gently. But maybe it saved us instead. If you've made it this far, let us know how you felt about the ending in the comments. Would you want a sequel to explore what happens next? Drop your thoughts below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.